Hit it, boys.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Robert Husby, and welcome to this edition of HTF Bets. Today we're going to be talking about, in our first segment, we're going to be talking about the Khabib and Justin Gaethje fight that's happening this weekend. I'm going to go to Alyas Blanco first, who is our newcomer. Welcome, Alyas. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Can't wait to talk about this fight. This has been a long time coming. We've been waiting for a main event like this. Nick, how you feeling ahead of fight week?
I'm doing pretty good. Like you said, this is a long time coming with this fight, and it seems like it just kind of snuck up on us out of nowhere. And we're going to get an earlier start time, which bodes well for me staying awake all the way through it. So I'm definitely excited for that.
Absolutely. And, we're coming fresh off the Lomachenko-Lopez fight, which is arguably one of the biggest fights in boxing in the last few years. And now we're coming up to one of the biggest fights in MMA history right now. So, Okelo, how you feeling?
Man, I mean, I get two main events in the span of back-to-back weeks. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better. This is one of the biggest UFC fights probably since Conor McGregor's return earlier this year. So I know we talked a lot about other matchups earlier this year, but I mean, this one, I never thought I would see Khabib fight in 2020 until now, and what a matchup he has. So I can't wait to dish it out and duke it out and, crown a champion.
Absolutely. And, Khabib is the favorite in this fight. No surprise. The guy's arguably one of the most dominant fighters in history, one of the most dominant lightweights you'll ever find. This is one of the biggest lightweight fights you'll see. It is for the lightweight championship. So, Elias, what do you see going into this fight? Obviously, with Khabib being the favorite, do you kind of agree with Khabib being the favorite, or do you think Gaethje is going to really give him a tough time here?
Yeah, so with Khabib Nurmagomedov, you're talking about the best wrestling in the UFC. He's undefeated for a reason, right? He's able to dictate the pace of a fight, and he's able to, hinder any rhythm that any opponent has. He's able to, push you onto the fence, and if he does, that's basically like game over for anybody because you're basically going to be exerting energy defending double legs. With that being said, I really think that this is a matchup nightmare for Khabib Nurmagomedov. I know that Justin Gaethje has an exciting fighting style. He likes to put a show on for the fans and stuff. But people tend to forget that he is a Division I All-American national wrestler at the University of Northern Colorado. And he uses his wrestling as defense to keep the fight standing where he's most comfortable. And if Khabib is not able to implement his wrestling game within the first 2 rounds, it is going to be a long night for him.
Absolutely, 100%. I think that's the thing with Justin Gaethje is Khabib's really never fought a guy with the wrestling ability that someone like Justin Gaethje has. And that is really interesting because Khabib usually wears his guys down on the ground. Just mauls them like a bear. So, Nick, with that being said, obviously Justin Gaethje is known for his really, really excellent cardio. He knows how to defend on the ground. He's a great defensive scrambling wrestler. Might not necessarily get you in a submission, but Justin Gaethje also has great stand-up, which Khabib kind of lacks at. Khabib's fought elite strikers before like McGregor and Dustin Poirier, but he's never really fought a guy that can kind of do both. So do you think Justin Gaethje is Khabib's biggest nightmare, like Elias was saying, or do you think Khabib is going to kind of handedly take this one?
Oh, no doubt about it. It wasn't going to be Conor McGregor. It wasn't going to be Tony Ferguson, the way they fight. They're free-willing guys that like to throw a lot of jabs and a lot of hard punches. And truth is, that's not going to get it done versus Khabib. You have to be able to play his game because it's not a matter of when, it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when he's going to get you on the ground. He's going to try to go there. And, as Johan said, Gaethje is a master wrestler, but he hasn't had to go to it a lot in fights. His last 9 fights, he's finished them all by knockout. So he's going to be tested to see how much he can really he can do on the ground. But having that background and having that ability to go toe-to-toe with Khabib on the ground is going to be huge for them. And it's going to be really interesting to see how somebody else who can do the same things that Khabib can do, how he's going to respond. But absolutely, if Khabib's going to lose a fight ever in UFC, it's going to be this weekend. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely Khabib's toughest matchup, I think. And, Justin Gaethje's already been saying he's going to just kick everything out of Khabib's legs so that he can, prevent him from making those takedowns and, going to the well one too many times. But, Okelo, what do you think about this fight? What do you see coming into this? Do you see Khabib, maybe changing his game plan a little bit? Obviously we know he's going to go to the ground, but what do you think he needs to do to adapt to fight a guy that has both in his arsenal like Justin Gaethje?
endurance. I think he needs to train up for endurance because, I mean, this is a fight that no doubt is going to go the distance. I mean, even though Justin Gaethje has won his last 5, I believe, in terms of knockout, I mean, this one isn't going to be like any one of those fights. I think that he needs to work on his training for an endurance because this is going to be a fight that is going to, I want to say, go at least into the later rounds before a decision is crowned. So I think Khabib just needs to strengthen up in endurance. And it's weird for him as a fighter to train for endurance because we know him as usually a quick grounder, a pound-for-pound fighter who will easily take down his opponents by at least maybe late second, early third round, maybe even the first round if he's having a really good night. So I think for Khabib, he's just got to make sure to dig it because he's never faced anybody, again, of this background like Johan mentioned, in terms of wrestler. Now, I could maybe talk about guys like Brock Lesnar or somebody who's been able to adapt that type of collegiate wrestling style into this combat sport and succeed. And with Gaethje having that ability to grapple and be able to at least do takedowns or anything, that gives him the advantage against Khabib because, we just know him for punching and knocking out, not necessarily as much in terms of hand-to-hand, things. So I think if he focuses on endurance and as well as focuses on pace of the match, and it's something that's going to be weird, test it out, feel the water, and then be able then to know, okay, how do I avoid or get out of this lock or things like that. So I think for Khabib, endurance, like I mentioned again, and just being able to just get ready because this is going to be, if not the biggest challenge for his undefeated streak that he's had in a long, long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's a lot of storylines going into this one. Obviously, Khabib, his father recently passed over the summer, so there's a lot of meaning to him. This is his first fight since, his father has passed away. His father was always in his training camp. This I'm sure means a lot to Khabib. So, Alyas, if you had to bet on this fight, would you go with Khabib, with the emotional and just the tactical knowledge that we know Khabib is? We've never really seen a guy this dominant before. I mean, he's undefeated for a reason. Are you going with the favorite here, or you see Justin Gaethje pulling out an upset here?
I'm gonna go with the betting underdog Justin Gaethje in this matchup. Again, I think he's stylistically a nightmare for Khabib. He also has an 80% takedown defensive rate in the UFC, so he's in the top 20 percentile throughout the entire roster. And he's probably the scariest lightweight to fight currently in that division. And, if he's able to force Khabib to move backwards, his takedown attempts are going to be less effective because he's going to have less momentum off his back foot. And also, he dominated Tony Ferguson. I really thought Tony Ferguson was going to be the champion at 155.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought Tony Ferguson was going to be able to pull that fight out, and we were going to get the dream matchup of Ferguson versus Khabib. Obviously, that didn't end up happening. Gaethje dominated him the entire fight, finally finished him in the 5th round. So Gaethje's just been dominant, and he's, his last 7 to 9 fights have been by TKO. Even when he's gotten knocked out, it's been by TKO or knockout. So, the guy loves to stand up, but don't underestimate his wrestling abilities. I think you can take away so far of what we said. So, Okelo, what do you think about this? Who are you going with? You going with Khabib, or you going with Justin Gaethje here?
I have to go with Khabib. I mean, it's like I have to take the favorite at minus 588 over 285, which is the projected closing odds for this fight. Excuse me, that was from the Poirier fight. But I just got to go with Khabib. Like I said, I think that this is just a fight that Khabib's going to get challenged, but he's undefeated for a reason, and he's 32-0. He's one of the best fighters. I mean, I would be foolish enough not to take the favorite here in this matchup. So, Khabib, I think, is going to take it. It's going to be a fight. I'll just say that, but I expect nothing less from the undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world.
Yeah, I think Khabib is under 330 for this fight, so he's a favorite. But Nick, what do you see? You going with favorite? You going underdog? This is a real interesting fight. A little bit easier maybe to bet on the underdog this time, but where are you going with this?
Yeah, I'm feeling lucky. I'm going with Justin Gaethje. I mean, the way he did Tony Ferguson in that fight, a lot of those punches that he was throwing at Ferguson would have ended anybody within the first 3 rounds, including Khabib. Okay? That's how powerful he is. Tony Ferguson is the exception to the rule because that guy just takes punishment like nobody I've ever seen in UFC. So when you take that into perspective, and the fact that we've already talked about in depth about his wrestling background and, you know, trying to just keep going at the legs of Khabib, I think Gaethje's going to pull this off, and I think we're going to have an actual champion right now in this division. And to me, that's Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up, you know, just those facts. I think, you know, Khabib, this style is going to affect him, and he's never really fought a guy that can do both like this. And I think that absolutely makes it, as we've said before, a nightmare matchup for him. So I think I'm gonna have to agree with you two. I think, you know, I think Justin Gaethje, if you want to bet an underdog here, I think this is a safe bet on an underdog. I think, you know, as good as Khabib is, as dominant as, I won't be surprised if he wins on Saturday. But I think with Justin Gaethje, it really is because of the way the styles match up. I really think he can give Khabib a hard time and really pull out a victory here and really pull out a huge upset. You don't see a lot of huge underdogs like this. You know, it's kind of a sure thing with Khabib in the past, but now it seems like Gaethje might really give him a tough time. So I've been conflicted. I think a lot of people have been conflicted, but absolutely, I think I'm going to go Justin Gaethje here. I'm going the underdog. I like the chances there for him. So to finish out this segment a little bit, you know, we obviously have talked about the styles matching up and stuff like that. Where do we go from here? And that's what I want to kind of go from here. I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball. Alyas, where do we go from here? If obviously Justin Gaethje takes the belt here and ends Khabib's perfect record, where do we go from here? Who's next for these guys? What's next at lightweight? Obviously Gaethje would be at the top, but where do we go from here?
Well, for Khabib, if he defends the title, he obviously said the only fight that's going to interest him is George St. Pierre. He's on his way out. He already said he's kind of lacking motivation to fight. So George St. Pierre is the only fight that he will be interested in taking. With Justin Gaethje, I really do think that Conor McGregor is probably going to be the next opponent. I know they said that Conor and Dustin Poirier have like agreed to a fight. If that fight or those terms kind of fall through, I really think Conor McGregor is going to be the next one.
Yeah, I think inevitably we will see Khabib McGregor at some point, whether one is wearing the belt or not. It's just, you know, the luck of the draw where that's a money-making fight. People pay to see Conor. Conor's fights have always been among the top 5 in selling. So absolutely, I can see that 100%. Nick, what do you think? Where do you see this going from here with this division? You know, these fighters, regardless of who wins, who loses.
Well, we'll see if Gaethje's bluffing or not, because earlier today he said that Conor was irrelevant to him because he's fighting at 170 now. You know, we'll see, because, you know, money talks. Money talks. And if you're going to fight Conor McGregor, you're going to have the biggest payout that you're ever going to have in your career. And that's just the bottom line. I think that's a fight that'd be dangerous for Conor McGregor. At this stage, he hasn't fought a lot in the last few years, and he hasn't really looked convincing. And I don't take much stock into the Cowboy Cerrone fight because, I mean, let's face it, everybody's beating up Cowboy Cerrone right now. The guy just loves to fight, but he loves to get his face kicked in too. So, but going forward, I think if Khabib loses to Gaethje, I like to think the competitor in him is going to want that rematch to avenge that loss, and then from there, it's St. Pierre or he's done.
Yeah, fair enough. And Okelo, what do you think with Khabib? Where do you think he's gonna end up? You know, whether a win or a loss. I mean, who's left to really challenge him in that division? I mean, if he does win.
Other than St. Pierre, I mean, you know, it's really hard to really determine, I guess, the future of this lightweight division. I'm just as concerned as well because you have so much what ifs, you know, especially like with Conor McGregor, you know, scheduling to come back to fight. Hopefully if fans are allowed at AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys play. So I'm just as puzzled as you guys. I like everyone's takes. I'm just going to go with that. I'm not too sure. I mean, I think, you know, Khabib has proven that he's one of the top dogs. I mean, if by some miracle, maybe because it's 2020, maybe he wants to upgrade his weight class and maybe join the midweight division or maybe go for the heavyweight. I don't know. I just really have to say is that I just expect a rematch potentially some way because I think Khabib is going to get something out of this fight to where it's going to challenge him as one of the best. And I think he would want this rematch because he wants to, I think, prove himself. Because I think Gaethje, like we've said, is going to be his biggest test of all time. And I think that he's not going to fight the way that you expect, but he's going to get the victory somehow, some way. That's just because of the nature of the fighter he is. So I'm expecting a rematch down the line, but really, I can't really say anything about this UFC lightweight division for the future. It's just more or less we just got to see what happens, and hopefully more fights get down the line, and we'll just see what happens Saturday in Abu Dhabi.
Absolutely. Well said, Okelo. Well said, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me for this segment. Always great to talk MMA and UFC. This is one of the most hyped fights we've seen in a while in the UFC, so I'm excited. I know y'all are excited. We can't wait to see what happens this weekend. One of these more interesting matchups. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be a great time for everybody watching. So thank you so much, gentlemen. In our next segment, we are going to be talking about some college football as the Big Ten returns to action this weekend. Stick around.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to HTF Bets. We're switching from the world of boxing to the pigskin, college football. We're talking today. The three amigos are glad to be joined by the lovely Kellie Campbell because we are talking Big Ten football. I'm excited as well as anybody, but Kellie, I know that you are just excited about anybody. Obviously, your Penn State Nittany Lions finally get to play this season. What's up? How are we feeling about Big Ten return? How are you doing this afternoon?
Oh, I can't wait. I am so excited. I've been waiting for this for 10 months since the bowl games finished up back in January. So I really could not be more excited. I'm pumped.
Well, no, I can imagine. I mean, your Nittany Lions came off fresh off of a Cotton Bowl victory against the Memphis Tigers. I hate to say that name amongst the four of us. Obviously, we know what happened Saturday, but let's not clout that. Let's talk about the Big Ten. Obviously, it's a shortened season, so it's just going to be all conference games. But obviously, there is going to be a Big Ten champion at the end of the year. Obviously, Ohio State is the favorite at -145. The next up, of course, is Wisconsin. Then, Kellie, your Penn State Nittany Lions are at +175 with Michigan at 1225. I'm going a little bit off the haywire and saying that Minnesota could potentially do it. But then again, I'm always the outlier of this group. Kellie, bring us some knowledge. How are we feeling about the Big Ten? Is Ohio State going to dominate per usual? Is Justin Fields going to contend for that Heisman? Or do you see something different this year? Obviously, not only because 2020, but because there's a whole lot to go down in this conference this year.
Right. Honestly, I am a Penn State fan, so it does kind of pain me to hear all this Ohio State talk, but I can very much see that happening. Ohio State is a powerhouse. They had a fantastic year last year. Justin Fields is, I feel like, kind of a once-in-a-decade type quarterback almost. He's insanely talented. Like, I can't not respect his game. But then again, if you look around, 2020 is a weird year. So everyone has these predictions going in right before we play. We've gotten to see some other conferences play some football. We've seen some really big, surprising teams. Like, usually powerhouse teams let us down. You can see that with Oklahoma and the Big 12, not even ranked anymore. And you can see that with a couple of the big dogs in the SEC as well. So you truly never know. I mean, we could be surprised, but for now, I do see Ohio State kind of leading the conference with Penn State, a close second. So I can't complain.
I know it's weird, Kellie, because trust me, I got on the Penn State Nittany Lion Blue. Obviously, I'm not really into Ohio State as well. But you can't deny the talent that where you see it now. Penn State has a lot of great talent. I mean, Mekhi Parsons is obviously going to be a potential top 10 pick in the draft this year. I expect that Penn State defense to just continue to grow and develop. And, I want to see James Franklin, continue the success of his program. That's why, even though I said Minnesota, it's primarily to win out West. For the East, I mean, I would like to say Penn State gets it done. I mean, I want to see James Franklin, of course, accomplish something big, and that's become the first African-American head coach to win a national championship. If he can do that, he obviously has to beat Ohio State to do that. So, but switching gears, though, Nick, I want to see you. You're wearing the scarlet for red for Ohio State. I'm not sure if it's just with the Buccaneers. Are you feeling Ohio State is going to be the Big Ten champion, or are we maybe seeing Michigan? What's your take?
Well, I promise you first, this is for the Bucks. I am the Buckeyes.
Oh, that hurts.
What hurts me is Penn State's chances this year to win the Big Ten, because there is no Micah Parsons this year. He opted out. Journey Brown is probably not going to play either. He's also probably opting out.
He's not. He didn't opt out. He can't play this year.
Yeah, medically can't. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, that's two of Penn. I mean, Michael Parsons, the leader on that Penn State defense. That's a top 10 pick. He's not going to be there. Journey Brown, unfortunately, is not going to be able to be there either. That takes a big hit to the running back room and maybe their best player maker on offense. So Penn State, I think is due to probably lose 2 games this year, given that, or I would have thought they would have competed with Ohio State. Honestly, I don't see many teams in this conference competing with Ohio State. Minnesota, I think, actually is going to still really have a good year because Tanner Morgan's coming back. He's experienced. Yes, they
row the boat.
Yes, they lost Tyler Johnson, but big for them is Rashad Bateman, who also is going to be a first-round talent at receiver. He opted out, then he opted right back in. So Tanner Morgan's going to get his wide receiver 1 back this year, and they still have Mohamed Ibrahim, who's a 1,000-yard rusher coming out of the backfield, and PJ Fleck is probably the second best coach in this conference, I would say. So
wouldn't go that far.
I'm going to go that far. Working with what he has, fantastic job by Minnesota, and I think they're going to be the team that pushes Ohio State this year.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, like I said, I believe in PJ Fleck. I'm rowing the boat, so I like that, Nick. But I just say this, don't doubt Penn State, because I think, really, if you look at quarterbacks in this conference, outside of Justin Fields, you look at the second best, I think it's Sean Clifford. I think he showed last year that he is going to be Penn State's future for a while, probably the best quarterback. I hate to say it, but since Tracy McSorley, but, because obviously all of our jokes. But, I mean, I just think, in a final analysis, it's going to be Ohio State, Penn State right up to 2, because we all know Michigan, same story. They can't beat Ohio State. And they're having so much issues at quarterback. Now, granted, they do have Ronnie Bell. They do have Cameron McGrone, 2 of the best at their position. But I'm not looking at Joe Milton to be somebody that's going to carry Michigan, and maybe clear Jim Harbaugh's name. I'm looking at that. Robert, any maybe changes you think, or are you just going Ohio State all around the board?
Yeah, I got to be boring. I think it's Ohio State. There's a reason they're still ranked in the top 5 without having played a game yet. I think with Ohio State, they're just so stacked, and they were the favorites. I mean, they were the number 1 favorite before, this delayed season to win the national championship. So I think, Ohio State definitely has the talent. They got a lot of their guys still. Obviously lost Chase Young. That's a huge loss. But, that team is so deep. I think they're just going to be great on both sides of the ball. And then it also helps to have, a top quarterback. Justin Fields is an absolute beast. And coming into next year's draft, I think, he's clear number 2 to Trevor Lawrence. Now, as far as what the big gap is in between taking Lawrence and Fields, I don't know. It could be in both within the top 5, both within the top 10, or, later in the first round. But Justin Fields absolutely is going to be, the number 2 quarterback taken most likely. So I think Ohio State is just going to be led by him. He's determined to play. He was one of the ones, signing those petitions saying, we want to play, we want to play. He wants this. And I think Ohio State, just how good they are leaps and bounds about the rest of the Big Ten, I think Ohio State's going to hold it down. I think Penn State's a second. I don't think it's close, but I think Penn State absolutely can give them a run. I think Penn State will likely finish 2 in those odds and stuff like that. As far as Michigan, I don't think Michigan's got a chance. I mean, since Jim Harbaugh's taken over that Michigan team, it's just been constant, upsets, constant disappointment. And listen, Michigan's losing a lot of talent. They've lost a lot of talent. Shea Patterson's gone, so they have a new quarterback. They've lost.
You would consider Shea Patterson talent that they
No,
lost?
but I mean, they're losing their starting quarterback. They're losing their starting quarterback. So, they've also lost 3 of their top 4 receivers. Donovan Peoples-Jones was taken in the draft last year, so they're losing a lot of talent there, and they're losing their number 1 tight end. So, it's not going to be great for Michigan or Michigan's offense. So I think Michigan, they're ranked right now. I don't know how long that'll last. I mean, it's really a lot of unknowns right now because there's going to be so many new guys playing and taking over starting positions that it's really hard to say. So I think it's a pretty big gap. Minnesota's definitely interesting after the season they had last year. Penn State's still obviously in the conversation always, but I think it's probably solidly Ohio State.
We've been talking so much about the big dogs. I think we forgot maybe one little outlier in terms of Wisconsin, because we know how usually they are in the Big Ten. They always compete. They're always just so close, but yet so far away. Nick, is there any chance you maybe see Wisconsin maybe climb through? And we haven't talked about them pretty much, because I look at the Badgers and I still see a pretty solid team that could potentially give not only Minnesota and the Big Ten West a trouble, but potentially Ohio State. Any chance for Wisconsin?
They're going to be there. They're there every single year, and Paul Chryst has done a great job with Wisconsin and keeping them afloat all these years. Jack Cohn, who I didn't think he's a great quarterback, but I thought he was rock solid at the position. He's hurt, so Graham Mertz is going to be coming in there. He's a very young guy, but they're excited about him in Wisconsin to see what he does. They're going to be physical. They're going to run the ball, even with losing Jonathan Taylor. You're going to hear about some other Wisconsin running back that's going to pop out this year.
Always.
It's their DNA. But touching on what Robert was saying real quick about Michigan, Joe Milton's been raved right now. Kirk Herbstreit's been raving about him, how he has number one pick potential. He's 6'5", 240. I'm going to throw a name out there, and I'm sure y'all are going to grimace at it based on how his career ended up, but he looks like Jamarcus Russell in college.
Really? That's a well, if we're talking Jamarcus Russell college, then I'll maybe say, okay. I mean, is he probably the best quarterback that Michigan has had, since Jim Harbaugh's taken over? I mean, I wouldn't say Shea Patterson or Wilton Speight.
Has even had a good quarterback since Jim Harbaugh.
Exactly. There's so much room to improve that quarterback room. He's going to have every opportunity, and I think he has the best physical gifts by far of any quarterback Jim Harbaugh has. Regardless of that, though, Jim Harbaugh is a world-class loser. He can't win a big game. Never going to change. So Michigan's going nowhere because of Jim Harbaugh, and that's
I think we've already made our predictions on the maize and blue. Kelly, real quick though, any likes for Wisconsin, or are we just still not too sure?
Honestly, it's the Big Ten West. There's pretty much zero competition out there except for Minnesota's miracle season they had last year. First of all, I don't see Minnesota having the season they had last year. They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost a couple guys on offense. I just don't see it click. I love the hope they have. I love that they had a nice little year last year, but I don't see it continuing into this year due to the loss of the offensive coordinator. As far as Wisconsin goes, though, they'll be there. They'll be right there. They'll get the hype. They'll get against the big dogs in the East, but it's going to probably wind up how it always does. They'll beat Michigan, but they won't be able to beat Penn State or Ohio State. They're not at that caliber yet. They're close. They're getting closer, I feel like, every single year, but I don't think they're at that. As with everyone in the West, I don't think they can compete there yet.
Well, we talk about compete. We usually talk about Wisconsin or even Minnesota. What about Iowa, Robert? I mean, they're a team that usually pulls off the upsets. I mean, they're usually a team that seems like they're there in the West and could potentially get to the Big Ten title game. Are we maybe looking at Iowa, or are we still dealing with Wisconsin? How are we feeling about either of the two?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Iowa does get those upsets. Iowa knows how to, win big games and stuff like that and get upsets. But I don't know. I think just with how good Wisconsin still is and the fact that they, can develop running backs the way they do and get a replacement in there for Jonathan Taylor, I think, I don't think the West is as open as, as it might be, but I think Wisconsin absolutely is still the favorite out west. Minnesota's decidedly second, just going based off of last season. We don't know what's going to happen this season, obviously, as they get ready to play Michigan this weekend. But no, I think, Iowa can upset some of those teams, but as far as being in the conversation for a Big Ten championship, probably not. But that's okay. They're a good program. They know how to get good wins, and, they can be in the conversation, but I don't see them being in the conversation out west, and I probably don't see them being in the conversation as a whole in the Big Ten championship.
Kirk Ferentz has done a great job with that program, but it's just like there's some years where just Iowa just wakes up and becomes a giant. We all remember what happened 5 years ago with C.J. Beathard and George Kittle and how crazy 2015 was, where they almost could have been in the college football playoff if it wasn't for Michigan State. So, I mean, we could see the sleeping giant woken when Kirk Ferentz wants to coach. But you did mention Minnesota, Michigan. That's the big-time matchup that's going to be on this Saturday, the Battle of the Little Brown Jug for the first time since 2017. Obviously, it's going to be in Minnesota, so a little bit of cold weather, a little bit of bad weather, but we love it here. Kelly, I want to start with you first. Who's taking home the Little Brown Jug in this Big Ten opener? Do we see Michigan taking it out, or is this the win that PJ Fleck needs to gain that confidence for his program?
If PJ Fleck can pull it off and win this game, he would have more of my respect, and I would be a little more worried about Minnesota this season. I think that would be an awesome win for him to have over Jim Harbaugh, even though it doesn't really mean too much because Michigan continues to place third in the East every year, but it's still Michigan. So honestly, you know what? I'm gonna pick Minnesota. I would love to see them win this weekend. So
Kellie's rolling the boat.
I would not say that, but I'll pick them for this weekend.
All right, Kellie's gonna at least be on the ship for at least this one. Nick, are you gonna roll the boat this Saturday with Minnesota, or you think Jim Harbaugh and Michigan are gonna come to play?
I mean, if you listened to me talk 5 minutes ago, I basically picked that game. Jim Harbaugh's not winning a big game, and this is a big game for his program. If Jim Harbaugh can't beat Minnesota today, regardless of how I hyped up Minnesota, you have to win. You have to win these games. He has shown zero inability to do it, and the seats got to start getting pretty warm for Jim Harbaugh going forward.
This is the last year of his contract.
Yeah, last year of his contract, and teams in the NFL are never going to stop going after this guy, which just doesn't make any sense to me. But regardless of that, I had Minnesota this week, and just real quick, kind of piggybacking on what you said about Iowa. About Kirk Ferentz, and if I think this is the year where Iowa flattens, actually, because if you remember way back in the offseason, there was a lot of controversy coming out of that program with the way Kirk Ferentz has handled it the past 20 years there. We had a lot of players speaking about, potential, racial injustice that was done in that program, and I'm very curious to see how these players react under Kirk Ferentz, and if it doesn't just blow up this year, if this could be the last year we see Kirk Ferentz coaching this team.
You did mention a lot of variables in that. I mean, hopefully, if anything happens this year, it would be interesting. I mean, you see Iowa blowing up, like I said, they haven't been competitive since maybe 2015. Even though they have those big upsets, the program is always just here. So we could maybe see a change. It'd be interesting. Robert, to continue on, I mean, are you rowing the boat this Saturday, or is Michigan going to take this one?
No, I agree with Nick. Let's roll the boat. I think, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, I don't know. It's just a bad combination. I know about disappointing coaching as a USC fan. We're trying to get Clay Helton out of there. For Michigan, if they continue having another losing season, I'm sure they'll –
for you, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't wait for the Pac-12 to start. But, I think Jim Harbaugh, like Nick said, the seat's got to be getting warm. If this is his last year of his contract, like Kellie said, and I think – if you can't win those big games, what are you good for? Michigan's a big program.
$9 million down the drain.
Yeah, exactly. And we know who the better Harbaugh brother is at this time. He's in the NFL. And, I think just this is what Michigan does. Michigan doesn't have that program where they can, beat these tough opponents yet and win these big games. So I see that to continue. As good as, the quarterback prospect is, I think, just with the decimation they've seen on offense, I just don't see them going up against what's likely to be a tough Minnesota team. So, obviously paper is just paper, but when we actually see it on the field, I think Minnesota gets it done. And I think we're going to start off this season with Michigan on the wrong foot. And people are already saying, is it time for Jim Harbaugh to go? What are we going to do with Jim Harbaugh? Oh boy. And we get a whole nother season of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh and the mess that goes through, that program's fandom of where they go from here. So yeah, I'm saying Minnesota. I'll be surprised if Michigan gets the big win here this weekend to open up the Big Ten.
It is one of the biggest games on the slate Saturday outside of any other games. I can't wait for it. I mean, we've all mentioned this is the year Jim Harbaugh puts up or shut up. And obviously, like Kellie mentioned, his contract is up this year, and it'll be where he goes from here. He could go back to the NFL where there are 2 slots open where he could go to the Falcons or he could go to Houston. He can go anywhere. So we'll have to just play it out and we see. But to wrap up this final segment, obviously all Big Ten we've been talking about, with maybe the exception of Saturday's games. What other matchups are you looking forward to for the rest of the year? Robert, I want to start with you. What Big Ten games are you looking forward to this year? Any matchup in particular you think you're excited for?
That's always Ohio State, Penn State, I think. That's always a good matchup. It's always fun, Those are the two likely to be the 2 teams that compete for the championship. I think those are always fun games. It'll be interesting to see. That obviously will rest on how Ohio State competes for a Big Ten championship, and if they get into the conversation starting this late in the season for a national championship playoff. But yeah, that's always the one to watch, I think. It's going to get the ones that are neutral like me, where I don't really have a stake in the Big Ten, where I'll go out and watch. So yeah, that's always the matchup.
Kelly, this matchup is going to be in Happy Valley. We already know sometimes how Ohio State tends to kind of bottle up a little bit when they travel up to University Park. Is that the biggest game, in your opinion, that's on your mind all year?
For sure. But the sad thing is that the stadium will be completely empty. No fans. So that pains me because I went last year to the Whiteout and there was 110,000 people there. And this year there will be 0. But the fan plays such a huge part, especially in the Whiteout games, especially when we play Ohio State. But that's going to be a huge game. That's actually next weekend. It's on Halloween. It's at 7:30, so I'll be nervous, and I think that's definitely, it's early in the season, and that right there is going to tell you either Ohio State could be underprepared and Penn State could get them, or Ohio State could just be on a different level and come in there and make me really sad. So, it's something to look forward to. There's a lot of hype around the game already, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I think that's going to be kind of that'll show you the season right there, and it's the second week, so I'm looking
Nick, what about you? Any other big games? Do you maybe even see anybody, despite the shortened season, the winner of the Big Ten even getting into the college football playoff? Whomever comes out on top?
Yeah, I think if you're the Big Ten, the second best conference probably in all of college football, if you run the table, you're getting in the playoff, no doubt about it. But a program I want to keep an eye on, we haven't mentioned today, is Nebraska.
Nebraska.
And I'm saying that because it's a pivotal third year for Scott Frost. Haven't really seen the improvement in the first 2 years. Obviously, it's a lot more difficult this year with the late start and the offseason program being neutralized there in the Big Ten. So you may want to cut them some slack, but I want to see how they come out against Ohio State. There's no chance I think they beat Ohio State, but I want to see how they play. I want to see the effort. I want to see if we have any guys that he can take something from, because this is a team that wanted to play. They were really leading the charge to play. And the Big Ten schedule maker said, hey, here's Ohio State. Have fun. So, we're going to find out if Nebraska has improved or not. And if they don't do anything this year, then we're going to have to start talking about Scott Frost's seat being pretty warm as well.
My question is this, though. I mean, they're starting Adrian Martinez. Again, we know the question marks he's at quarterback. You really going to trust, him with Scott Frost in this third year?
I don't know what Nebraska's going to do it. And I'll tell you, Adrian Martinez he ain't the answer. I think we've seen enough of him. The definition of inconsistent and a waste of talent, as far as I'm concerned, given how much he came into how much fanfare he came in with. I hate to be brutal to the guy, but it just hasn't worked out. And it just seems like doing the same thing over and over again, and it's not going to work again. Big year for him, and we'll see. But Scott Frost has got to get it moving quick, because it's been a while since Nebraska has been competitive. And, that just kind of speaks to the era we're in right now. Nebraska just doesn't have a chance at the moment.
It seems like ever since Nebraska joined the Big Ten, it's just like all that history, all that winning, and all the consecutive sellouts and stuff, they don't mean nothing, because ever since they left the Big 12, they've never been the same program. So this is, like you said, a pivotal year. We haven't seen Nebraska compete in a long, long time. And it's just proven whether their move to the Big Ten was just for money, or is it just for the fact that they just can't compete on the level like they did back in years prior. But
Nebraska wasn't awful when they first joined the Big Ten. They weren't horrible.
They weren't horrible, Kelly. I agree, but it's kind of like when TCU joined the Big 12 or when West Virginia. They had that one kind of good year, and then they've been kind of like on that roller coaster. So we just don't see the same fire as what we had back in the day. But you know what? We'll leave that all out for Saturday. First off, Friday, because I believe Wisconsin plays Illinois, but we already know the Badgers are going to take that and beat Lovie Smith. But we'll see, Kelly. last year, what Illinois did pull it off. So we'll see what
Yep.
we'll see what we see when we get Saturday. Thank you, Kelly, so much for being a part of our talk today. Hopefully, we'll see you back come time maybe for the college football playoff or when Penn State gets the dub on Halloween. I know you'll be cheering loud and proud, and even though there won't be no fans in Happy Valley, I'm sure that they'll hear you screaming all the way from our home city in Fort Lauderdale. But we're going to switch sides next up to top my least favorite segment. Well, not really least favorite segment, but another week, same old problems like the Cowboys losing. Coming up next, fantasy football, and we're going to talk week 7 in the NFL. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. HTF Bets will be right back.
Welcome back to HTF Bets. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is definitely my favorite segment of the show, but we all know it's not going to be Okelo's favorite segment because we are going to be talking about fantasy football, and I am coming straight to you, Okelo. You don't look thrilled. For anybody out there who doesn't know, which you don't know, Okelo lost again this week in fantasy football. He is 0-6, and if you're a hardcore viewer of HTF, please check out Johnny Jackson's commercial that he cut because it sums it up perfectly what has happened to Okelo's team, but I'll let him defend his team and his case. Okelo, what happened this week?
We made a trade. I made trades with Robert and Sean, expecting to go off this week. Obviously, I got the slightly better end of the stick because Ezekiel Elliott fumbled twice on Monday Night Football. I had Ryan Tannehill as my quarterback. If I had had him this week, I would have won my game against Noah. I was expecting to beat Noah, according to the projections, because Noah didn't touch his team until late Sunday. Aaron Rodgers is the reason I lost. My team was horrible. Alexander Madison, I made these big trades, and Aaron Rodgers decides out of all the days to have a 160-yard passing yard game and 2 interceptions and to give me 4 fantasy points. How do you do that? How do you do that? I don't know what the hell is going on with my team. It seems I can't catch a break, and out of all the weeks where I was expected to cruise to a victory, I lose again in another close fight. And the worst thing of it all is now Jarrett beats Robert for his first win of the year, and I basically am stuck now with the same record as Adam Gase and his New York Jets. I don't know who's horrible, but it's okay because I will win a game before the Jets this year. I promise you. But with that being said, I have nothing else more to say. I've had it because it seems that Robert, as our commissioner, always seems a way to find a screw me, whether it was our week 3 game or this fantasy trade. And just when I was about to get Jamison Crowder off your roster, Nick, I can't take it anymore. I lost my drafted running back, but I'm okay with that because he's had fumbling issues. But every week I can't, like your old coach in Tampa Bay, I can't stop a pass or a run. Other than that, I'm in great shape.
Well,
I can't do it anymore. I might as well join the 0-14 club, but I just can't take it anymore. Just suiting up for another week, and we'll see what happens. Because I was expected to come on the show wearing my nice kicks, have a little drink and a cigar, finally celebrating my first victory of the year, and I can't. And it's all thanks to Noah. But he fought hard. He won, but just another week of pain. So much miserable pain, but like I said, I'm done.
ladies and gentlemen,
It's not my turn.
between the Nuggets, between the Yankees, between the Miami Heat, and between his fantasy team, Okelo has experienced a lot of pain. And
The Steelers are my only requiem because they're 5-0, Nick. So don't say that, okay? And we're gonna beat the Titans this week.
well, we will stay tuned to see what that happens. But Robert, you heard a lot right there. So let's come to you now. How did your week go? You're not doing so hot either in fantasy, but you lost McCaffrey, so I've been cutting you some slack.
Thanks.
How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the pity, Nick, but a couple things went wrong with my team this week. The Rams defense lost a point because of their putrid first half defense against the 49ers this past weekend. That hurt me a lot. Cooper Kupp only got 4 points as well. He's one of my starting wide receivers. That hurt. I got Tyler Boyd in that trade. I traded Devontae Parker and Aaron Rodgers to Okelo for Tyler Boyd and James Robinson. James Robinson did well. Ronald Jones did better off my bench, but what can you do? My problem was not starting Tyler Boyd, who got almost 13 points, and T.Y. Hilton, who got about 4. So, T.Y. Hilton, the Rams defense, and Cooper Kupp hurt me this week. Otherwise, I probably would have won the game against Jarrett. But it's good to see somebody finally get a win there. And I'm 2-4 now. It is what it is. But I think I have a good team moving forward. It obviously, with Christian McCaffrey being out, it hurts. But I can't do anything. I have to manage that. And I think I've acquired some pieces that I think can help me moving forward.
Absolutely, Robert. We'll stay tuned also for you to see how you rebound. I'm going to stick with you, though, for this upcoming week. Give me your one best play and your one best sit that you think this week.
Sure. I'm going to start with the one sit. I think it's got to be T.Y. Hilton. And I know that's kind of recency bias because of what's happening on my team. But, I think it's been something like, I want to say 18 games, T.Y. Hilton. His last 18 games, T.Y. Hilton has not gone for over 100 yards. And this is a problem. With Andrew Luck now retired, nobody targets him. He is not the number one wide receiver on that team anymore. And so as the flex option on my team, he's just not putting up points. And it's not rare to see him get no touches in the first half and put up no points and then, put up something like 4 points. So he has really been a terrible option for me. So he is absolutely 100% sitting on the bench for me these upcoming weeks, probably for the duration of the season, unless I see some sort of turnaround. I don't see it from Phillip Rivers because Phillip Rivers is not a deep ball thrower at this point in his career. So I think it's got to be Tyler Boyd moving forward to replace him. So that's my sit. Yeah. So as far as, T.Y. Hilton, sitting this week, I think my stardom this week has to be Tyler Boyd. He's been really good for them. AJ Green's getting a lot of receptions. He's getting a lot of points as well. He's becoming Joe Burrow's number one target. No surprise there that AJ Green's the number one target in Cincinnati. But, I think Tyler Boyd absolutely has a chance this weekend against the Browns to put up some points. The Browns defense is up and down. So I think someone like Tyler Boyd can really have another nice week here, as he put up double digits last week and he can put up double digits again this week. Maybe even, a better performance this week. He's been good all season and he's been consistent all season. So I expect that to continue from my end.
Okay, what do you got? Best start, best sit?
I'm going to start off with a sit, and I think this sit is going to surprise everybody, and as well as fantasy owners, because you know what they sometimes think in their mind? Revenge! His name, Jimmy Garoppolo. He had a great game on Sunday against the Rams, with the exception of the second half, which was putrid. Obviously, Robert knows. I mean, the 49ers, I don't think even got on the board or only scored 3 points in that second half. But, I mean, even though Jimmy Garoppolo's playing the Patriots and it looks like a matchup on paper, we all know the same story. It's the Patriots defense. Are you really going to trust your quarterback week in and week out to play a defense that's one of the top 5, not only in the league but also in fantasy? This is not a good matchup for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to be going back to Foxborough, number one, so that time difference is going to hurt him. And I just don't see a way that Bill Belichick is going to allow Jimmy Garoppolo to come back to Gillette Stadium and be able to beat him. So if you have Jimmy Garoppolo, I know week 1 I said start him. You're going to bench him this week, and you're not even going to think about it twice. But my one start this week, I know, Nick, you'll like this. I'm going to go with a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and his name is Ronald Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, I think he has been officially the clear-cut starter. We had our question marks going into the season, whether or not he was going to be the lead back, because you had LaShawn McCoy, you had Keshawn Vaughn, you had Leonard Fournette, who was just added out of nowhere. But Ronald Jones, it seems like he's been winning the job the last couple of weeks, and he's looked like he's going to stay. The Raiders have allowed the second most fantasy points to running backs this year. And, even though they're going to the Death Star in Vegas, which looks a little tough, a running back has scored a touchdown every time that they played there. Devin Singletary, Alvin Kamara. So I like Rojo to continue up his momentum. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes up in the top 5 in fantasy running backs this week. So Ronald Jones to me is a must start this week. He is a lock, and I guarantee that he will score at least over 20 fantasy points on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, and it's not a homer pick from me either because Ronald Jones has proven it 3 straight 100-yard games. Before the season, I said I'm staying away from the Tampa Bay running back situation because I didn't trust what Bruce Arians has said. Now it has helped that Fournette has been hurt, so Ronald has had a lot of freeway. And the Bucs, no matter if it's not working or not, they have shown they're going to try to establish the run. And lately, you've been seeing a lot of good push from the guys in the line, and Ronald Jones looks so much more improved. Breaking tackles, making moves. We didn't see that the first 2 years in Tampa. And you brought LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy is toasted. LaShawn McCoy has had maybe 3 carries this year for -1 yards. So, I mean, LaShawn McCoy hasn't been a factor. So, with that being said, Ronald Jones, this is his backfield. I'm glad to see him, and I think he definitely has 20-point potential every single week he touches the ball going forward. But that will do it for us today. Thank you so much for being here with us today as we talked boxing, college football, the Big Ten coming back, and of course fantasy football. Tune in tomorrow to see Almost Game Day with HTF analyst Sean Green, and we'll be back next week. See ya.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.